All right, Jeff, this is our interview with Michael, and I'll start it in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of AGORACOM, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives about recent important news and developments at their companies. With us today, I'm happy to have again Michael Dane. He's President and CEO of Fairmont Resources. The company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol FMR. For our friends in the United States, they trade on the stock symbol FRSSF. And for our friends in Germany, it trades on Frankfurt under F001. Now, for those of you who are new to the story and don't know the Fairmont story just yet, a little bit of information. This is a rapidly growing industrial minerals and dimensional stone company. Now, more than just lip service, the company recently announced a major acquisition of an industrial minerals business in Spain, while the company's Quebec properties include 3 quartzite properties, amongst other things. And on top of that, on May 26th, just yesterday, the company announced that they had optioned the Rome Lithium property in Quebec. So here to get more information about it is Michael. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks, George. How are you?
I'm great, and we're happy that you're joining us today. We appreciate it, especially as it's a Friday, and you responded pretty quickly to this interview request. So you optioned the Rome Lithium property in Quebec, and what I love about it is its location, because it's contiguous to not one, but 2 pretty important projects out there. Give us more detail on that.
And the one project or property it's tied onto, or in the shadow of the head frame, as they say in the gold space, is Canada Lithium, or RB Energy's Quebec Lithium project, which was an underground mine originally. More recently, it has been an open pit mine. And then Jordan Resources ties on to Canada Lithium, which is the extension of the zones to the east, where there's been about 4,000 meters of drilling. Out of the 17 of them hit lithium mineralization. We have the extensions to the north and south of those properties. And I guess you look at where we are, that we know there's lots of lithium in the system. There has been historical production. They've made carbonate from the property next door. So we're not, out in the middle of nowhere. We're not chasing something that we have a resource base on the neighbors next door that you can look at as, okay, it occurs in the system. Now, can we demonstrate that we have that same mineralization on our claims?
Okay, so the natural question to that is, what's your next step then? Where do you take from here in order to be able to confirm or deny that?
I guess the initial step, we're going to, because the projects have really, or the properties have really not had a lot of work on them historically, we'll be out and get prospectors on the ground to bang on the rocks. So, the best way to find it is if you find it in an outcrop on surface. That's the cheapest exploration you can do. And spodumene, which is the lithium-bearing mineral in this area, is recognizable visually. So you don't need to go out and do on a first pass, at least, you don't have to go do drilling. You don't have to do a lot of soil geochem. You first look and see if you've got the rocks on surface. If they're buried and not exposed, they could be 2 meters underground, they could be 20 meters underground. Then you have to look at another technique. In this case, I would suggest soil geochemistry would be the next step to do after that.
Now, I would assume here, and this is just playing devil's advocate, but you got some theory or indication of what you might find there, because knowing you and your group, you're not just taking a shot in the dark. What do you think theoretically, is you're gonna find there?
Okay, I guess I look at the geometry. If you have, you can put 1 million tons of lithium mineralization in a zone 400 meters long by about 40 meters wide by about 40 meters deep. A Lego block, call it the size of 1 million tons. If we can come up with distribution of lithium-bearing dikes in a volume of rock larger than that, we kind of have a good starting point, knowing what the potential is, and the property has enough size that that's a reasonable assumption. If you put the claim package together, the north and south blocks of the Rome property, it is almost exactly the same size as Canada Lithium's. So the footprint is there that you could have these deposits in it, but you won't know until you get work on the ground.
So you've now entered the fray of the junior lithium market, which has been extremely hot over the last several months.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about this junior lithium market? Because we know, devil's advocate again, in the past, there have been spaces that get hot and a bunch of people just kind of jump in just for the headline to be able to get a bump in their share price. So where do you fit in, and how are you different from the rest, or how do you fit into the top tier while others might be pretenders?
Well, I guess part of it is I know the lithium projects quite well. Working in northwestern Ontario, when I was with Gold Corp, you had Avalon and the rare earth pegmatites in northwestern Ontario. Gossan Resources were up there. Then you got Lac Pakagamika. All this stuff was happening around Red Lake back in the 90s. Then you get to the mid 2000s, and there was the second lithium boom. I guess the first one was in the 90s. The second one was in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, when you had the original discovery of Canada Lithium, or the original rediscovery and redevelopment of Canada Lithium, and then Jordan Resources, they did their work. I think Nemaska started their work back then, Glen Eagle Resources, Globex. So they did a lot of this work, say it was mid to late 2005 to 2010, maybe 2011. And now we've got a new surge, which is really focused around the battery market and Tesla, which wasn't the focus the last two surges. So we're in a bit of a cycle here, and it's a boom bust cycle, and we're trying to mitigate a boom bust cycle by not going after a battery market, but can we make the best spodumene, or the best concentrate of lithium or rock that would go to the technical market or to the chemical market versus the battery market. So I have done testing in the past with other projects, within 10 kilometers of the Rome property, and in short order we were able to get to 5 to 6% Li2O. So I've already got a bit of a team working in the background that can do metallurgy, and metallurgy is going to be what drives the economics. I mean, if you have lithium, great. Now you have to get it out of the ground and make something from that raw ore. I think we can distinguish ourselves in short order by bringing on that metallurgical focus early in the game, and not wait 2 to 3 years down the road. I mean, come August, September, I expect to have test runs already for recoveries and flotation from rock from the property.
All right, now that's encouraging to hear. So you talk about fast action, and you're going to have a good idea by Q4 as to what you're looking at over there.
Yeah, when I was working with Rob McEwen, he said you got to be faster than everyone else, and the best place to compress time. When you're building a mine, it's hard to compress time. When you're doing exploration, you can compress your time. So a lot of guys go, I'm going to drill, $300,000 now, and then I'll drill 300,000 next year and 300,000 next year. Well, you already know what your program is. If you have access to that capital, do it all now, because you're not doing the shareholders any favor waiting 2 years to get it out of the ground. Compress it. And what we can do is also compress the metallurgy, because if all of a sudden there's something wonky in any of these lithium deposits, I mean, there's some guys, I think it's Lepidico out of Australia, they have a technology that works on lithium. It turns out that some of these projects that we have in Ontario or Quebec as an industry don't work with traditional flotation. We're going to have to count on guys like Lepidico, who can come up to add value to other deposits. And with this deposit, I think we've de-risked it, or there is de-risking enough around it that you can see that Nemaska, which has a similar type of rock, Glen Eagle, the spodumene seems to make a nice flotation concentrate. And that is step one of getting it to a final product. Sure, you can do that before you kind of say, hey, we got this great deposit in, say, Nevada. And I look at a lot of the stuff in Nevada, I don't know how many of them are going to be economic. It's do they have the metallurgy or the solutions that they can concentrate this? Is the economics there?
Last question. This is a bit more of a technical question, but I think a lot of people want to hear what you have to say about it. Brine or hard rock? Where do you see the best opportunities, and why?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in hard rock. There are obviously some good brine deposits, but brines typically you have to have a byproduct with them to be an economic deposit. We're set at the victim of Mother Nature with weather and earthquakes. If you have an earthquake in a brine deposit, it can actually reset the water table So your concentrations might change in your solutions. And the same happens if you're doing surface evaporation for a brine. If it rains, you can have a really bad year. Hard rock, you have higher costs of mining typically. You have to deal with grade control a lot differently than you do with a solution mining or a brine situation. But your deposit is there. It doesn't change if it rains. It doesn't change if it snows. If you have an earthquake, the rock is still the rock. It doesn't change. And you typically can have a defined resource that isn't moving in a system. Where it's going to be. If all of a sudden you're on some aquifer and your neighbor starts pulling out of your brine system, you don't know what's going to happen to your resource 5 years from now if they've been sucking out of it. Our rock's on our property. It's going to stay on our property, and we know it's going to stay there. It's, you know, traditionally we've been mining lithium rock for hundreds of years, so it's not something new. And there's a lot of industries that cannot use brine. So the brine, lithium carbonate, lithium hydroxide are great end products, but not everyone uses them. There's a lot of people, a lot of industries that are dependent on spodumene as a starting point for other chemical products. So you need the hard rock to feed the traditional markets.
Thank you for answering that question. I got to tell you, thoroughly and without having to use technical jargon, people have to decipher by code afterwards. So that was an awesome answer, Mike. Looking forward to having you back, because it sounds like you're going to do a lot of work there on the Rome Lithium project. Congratulations on its acquisition. On its face, it looks like a pretty smart one. But what's even more encouraging is the fact that you're going to be getting to work on it pretty quickly here, and we're going to know before the end of the year much better information about it. So we're looking forward to it, and you know you're going to be back on here to talk about everybody again.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for your time, George. Have a great weekend.
Appreciate it, Michael. You've been watching Michael Dane. He's President and CEO of Fairmont Resources, Inc. The company trades on the Venture Exchange under the stock symbol FMR. You can find out more information about them at fairmontresources.ca. Take a close look at the company. Do your due diligence, because they're hitting on all cylinders right now. Take a look, even though we're talking today about the lithium, take a look about the dimensional stone company that they're acquiring out of bankruptcy in Spain. That has potentially exciting ramifications for the company's future. So there's a lot going on at Fairmont. Highly encourage you to take a close look at it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. If you're going to be watching this over the weekend, and we'll join you next, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. All right.